Welcome everyone to another episode of Friday PM.
Yeah!
Let's talk about it!
You guys had me hanging there for a moment. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. God richly bless you. And for the regular viewers, welcome back. And those that are joining us for the first time, you are very welcome. And do yourself a favor, catch up with all the other episodes that you have missed. And it's no accident that you've joined us today. If you've missed last weekend, then you've missed out. Where should they go? For the Easter worship?
You're welcome to check it out. It's still there. And we thank you for everyone who have written wonderful, wonderful feedback, emails and comments. Praise the Lord. We give glory to Jesus. And we keep nothing for ourselves. We don't deserve it. And so it's still there, and it's wonderful if you could share it with friends and family who don't know the Lord. And I know they will be blessed.
Yeah. So if you type in Vinesong Easter Worship Night, or you look for Worship Night, we've got a Worship Night playlist which has the Worship Night from February and this Easter Worship Night. If you just want a worship boost, then that's where you'll find it on our channel.
Fantastic. Is it on Facebook or not? Only on YouTube? Okay, it's only on YouTube. Also, we've got a very exciting announcement to make because very soon, hopefully, we are going to start, or what do you say? We're going to be starting our podcast, right?
Yep.
Rachel, tell us.
So we're going to be taking these episodes. We understand that many people are not able just to sit down for 30 minutes, 40 minutes to watch something, but maybe you're out for a walk or you're doing other things and you'd love to just listen to the message. And sometimes on YouTube that's not very easy. So we're looking at doing a podcast so that you can listen while you're on the go and doing other things, and just another way to engage with Friday PM and the things that we're putting out.
Praise the Lord. So we hope you'll be mightily blessed. We'll let you know when that comes up. We'll leave a little reminder there for you. So we're praying into that. Now moving to today, we actually have got a very special guest with us today in the form of Rachael Gray.
I was hoping that I was going to be on Zoom like all the other special guests, but I said no, I've got to come into the studio. So
We thought of leaving Rachael in the house, in the living room, and say, "Ooh, where are you?" And now I'm just in the living room. Well, we thought of we've been praying about it actually and saying, Lord, when is the right time? Because so many people have been blessed by Rachel's wonderful testimony over the years. So many people that we've been staying with, and some pastors or members of the church that have heard just how mightily the Lord has pulled her through so many amazing challenges and circumstances. And so we just appreciate you, Rachael. She's a great asset, not only to this ministry but to the body of Christ. And I know she's got a big family, and maybe we should start there. Rachael, tell us what you're one of.
I'm one of 7 children. I'm the third. So I was born, the 3 older ones, we were all born in the 70s. You get your calculator out and work out ages. But
some people are thinking, really? I thought you were so much younger.
Late 70s.
Late 70s.
Well, actually, the mid-70s. So anyway,
good time.
Moving right along.
Thank you. Anyway, so I've got an older sister, Melanie. She's exactly 3 years older than I am, and between us is my brother Richard. 16 months between him and my sister, and 20 months between me and him. And so my mum had 3 children under the age of 5, basically from the age of 3, with me there, as we were growing up. And it was like that until the end of 1980, when my brother Adrian came along, and then came along my sister Vicky at the beginning of 1983, then my brother Philip in 1984, and finally my baby sister Hannah, who came along in 1982, 4 months before my 18th birthday.
82.
92. Very
Sorry.
good.
You're getting me off guard.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow, Rachel. And then now the family, how many grandchildren are there already? How many nieces
so
and
six nephews,
have you got?
6 nephews and 4 nieces.
Praise the Lord. Wow, there's fruitfulness in the Gray family. Praise the Lord. And of course, your mom and dad are so lovely. We appreciate them. Byron and
Pat and
Byron. And we appreciate them so much. They always support us. They always pray for us. And which is one, I mean, we're kind of a big Vinesong family. But with Rachael's family, we're getting a really, really big family.
I rent a crowd over there.
They added the numbers. So, yeah, your family is a great blessing, Rachael. And okay, so you grew up in, you were born where?
So I was born in a place called Bloxwich, which is near Walsall in the West Midlands. So I was born in 1974, so the mid-70s. And the area that I grew up in was, there were a lot of white people. There were not very many black people. It was not very ethnically diverse. It wasn't necessarily maybe as bad as when my parents came. But we still went through that, and of course you stand out when you're at school. If you're the only, me, my brother and sister, and maybe there were 2 or 3 other people of color, a couple of Indian people, and maybe a couple of other people of color. That was it. That was it in our school of hundreds of people. But we grew through that, and it was it was a good time.
Sorry, and your parents are from Jamaica, right?
Yes, my parents are from Jamaica. They came over in the 60s. Both their mothers had come over to England in the 50s after the war, after the 1940s, 1945. England called a lot of people over from the Commonwealth, which a lot of Indians, a lot of people from the Caribbean, some African countries to come over to do jobs in the NHS, to drive buses and really do all of those jobs, kind of really to build the economy back up and build the country back up. So my grandmothers were over in England. They came over from Jamaica, and they decided they were going to send for their children and bring their children over to England with them to kind of grow up and yeah.
And then I think you mentioned at some point, you've told me I think once or twice, that basically your parents moved to an area basically that's more predominantly white, right? That you didn't choose it. Was there a specific reason for that, or?
When my parents were looking for a house, I'm not really sure why they decided, but they decided to look further afield and to look into another community. And I don't know if they looked at the schools in Wolverhampton and were not happy with the way that some of their cousins and that were being treated, because there was a lot of racism even in the outcomes, of young people not being pushed to do any further, told that they couldn't do anything further, told that they wouldn't be able to achieve higher things, and putting them in for lower exams and things like that. And maybe they looked at that and thought, listen, we'll go to another area and give our children a different chance.
So at school, were you an achiever, Rachael? To see those marks? How well did you do? Listen, for the record, Rachel's pretty clever. Okay, she's clever. So you're gifted, Rachael. So what? How was school for you?
I like school. I was, I think I always achieved quite well. I think maybe I wanted to, make my parents proud or whatever. But I was okay at school. I enjoyed school. I enjoyed schoolwork. I worked hard. I wasn't the brightest, but I wasn't the dumbest. I wasn't really. I had the ability. And really, I think it was just working hard. It wasn't that I was necessarily just naturally intelligent. I had natural intelligence, but I still had to work hard at it. And I did fairly well at school. In England, we do exams at the age of 16. And I stayed on after the age of 16 and decided to do A-levels. I decided that I wanted to become an engineer. I think my dad had spoken about engineering before, and I thought, okay, that sounds like a good thing to do. And I decided I wanted to do electronic engineering, and because many people said, mechanical is hard and hard work and heavy stuff, and I thought, okay, I'll do electronic engineering. I could have done the dirty stuff. It wasn't really a problem, but that's what I did. So at the age of 18, I did my A levels. I did physics, German, because I was very good at languages, and maths. And I didn't actually get very good grades at my A levels. I really, it was very difficult to study. I think at home it was difficult to study. I didn't have my own bedroom. I shared a room, and A levels was just such a big leap, and there was just a lot of stuff, and I just at that stage wasn't able to do it. But I was still able to go to the university that I wanted to go to. I at that stage, I gave my life to the Lord at the age of 15. I decided that, God, I want to live for you. That's, I believe that this is real, and I gave my life to the Lord. I gave my life to the Lord many times before that, I think, growing up, but 15 was that kind of real decision where I said, Lord, I'm going to do this. And I really believe, and I prayed about, my university and, God, where do you want me to be? I remember going and visiting the university, and before they offered me a place, and I thought, this is the course I want to be on. They did German with electronic engineering. I thought, that's perfect. That's where I want to be. I didn't get the grades that they asked for, and they didn't ask for high grades. But I called them, and they said, yeah, you've got the place. And I really saw that as God's hand on my life. I really feel emotional, but I really saw God really move, at that time, and it was just really tangible, and just very.
What's normal that it's
Reggie.
So going to university, I really sensed God's hand on my life at that time. I really knew that God was with me, and that really started that real kind of walk of faith with the Lord, because He'd put me somewhere where I didn't deserve to be. I hadn't got what I needed to get to be there. And that really started my faith journey with the Lord, to know how much He's got my back, and that if He's got my back, then I can only go forward. I can only go upwards.
I'm amazed how you, as a young person, I look at the young people these days and remember myself when I was 15, how difficult it was to step away from the crowd and follow the will of the Lord for my life. And I do salute you for being so strong in your faith. I knew you grew up in the church. I did too. But there is a place in your life where you are faced with the decision to step away from the crowd and to follow the Lord. And I know you have shared with me some real intimate part of your life where you were abused as a child, and having to overcome racism, having to overcome abuse, and then coming to a place of being 15 and saying, Lord, I'm going for you. And how the Lord after that had such love for you, and He showed it to you by putting you in this wonderful place in the university. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the abuse, and I think at that time and at that age, it wasn't on my radar. Wasn't thinking about it. I was abused, I think, at the age of 8, 9, by a relative, and it did have an impact on my life, but the impact that it had on my life I didn't realise until later on, until really I was in my 20s. It wasn't something that I thought about. People talk about abuse and they think, you think it's some stranger somewhere, but when somebody that you know and love and trust does something that they shouldn't do, you think that you're to blame.
Right.
And you carry a lot of guilt and you carry a lot of shame. And so it just wasn't on my radar. I mean, I didn't even know that it was abuse, because in your young mind, there's things that you don't perceive in your young mind that you can only perceive when you're older. When you look at it through the lens of time, you can see, hey, that wasn't right. But at the age of 8, 9, 10, even in teenage years, even going to university, you can't see that. Because, and actually one of the things that I told myself, this thought kept coming up about what had happened, about this abuse, and I at that time I wasn't even thinking it was abuse, okay? It would keep coming up in my mind, But it was only when I was at the age of 27 that thing where God, it came up in my mind again, and I realized, and I was able to look at it and say, you know what, that was abuse. What happened was abuse. Until the age of 27, I had not known or called that thing as abuse. But to say that, yes, you know, it really had a big impact on my life, which I really only saw later on.
Right, so then in your 20s, so you finished the degree in electronic engineering, then you went to Germany. When did you go to Germany?
So during my degree, so the degree that I did was a degree in electrical and electronic engineering with German. So as part of the course, in England they call them sandwich courses. So you do 2 years at university, you do a year out in industry, and then you do 1 year and finish university. So that third year, because I was on the course and I was doing German, I had to go to Germany. And so, I mean, that's a whole miracle in itself, even kind of being in Germany, getting the job in Germany, all of that. That was a real walk of faith, and God showed himself to me just so strongly, because, I mean, I didn't have a placement in the June of the year that I was supposed to be going. I was supposed to start my placement in September. But I went on holiday, the summer break, knowing, God, you've got this. And during that summer break, that's when I got the placement. I got a placement at Siemens in Munich. And it really was fantastic. I mean, what was great about it for me, I mean, I'm in a different country, a different culture, a different language. And I went to a church there, I found a church there, and I felt at home. Actually more at home than the church I'd gone to at university. The church I'd gone to at university was the denomination that I'd grown up in. It had Caribbean people from my background, black people that, you know, you think that you have a common ground with. But I felt less at home there than I did at the church in Germany. I felt more at home in that church in Germany. And that was really, really great. I mean, one of the things that I had to overcome actually was often when people ask you where you're from, and even in England when people did it, I used to be a bit irritated. People ask you where you're from and you tell them you're from Warsaw. I'm like, but where are you from? It's like, you know, as a black person or a person of colour, as a black person or a person of colour, sometimes it can get irritating. But what God taught me in Germany is that people are just interested. Don't get angry because I actually do the same thing. If I see somebody that's a different colour, you ask them where they're from, but you are wondering where are their origins. It's natural. And that's one of the things that God taught me during that time. You don't have to get angry because people are asking you where you stem from genealogically, and you know where your family is from. It's fine. It's a natural curiosity. It's nothing to be angry about, and it's not racism. People are just curious. That's fine. So that's one of the things that the Lord had to try and help me get over at that time, because people would ask me, you know, where are you from? But where do you originate from? I mean, I didn't even know the words.
Well, how do they do it? They speak a little bit of German. How would the Germans ask you?
Woher kommen Sie? And I'd say, you know, England. Aber wo stammen Sie her? Wo stammen Sie her? And at first I didn't really understand what the stammen was, you know, wo stammen Sie her? I just knew, okay, but she's already asked me where am I from. And then she's asking me, wo stammen Sie her? Okay, she's asking where I'm from again. But then I realised, she's asking where I originate from, and yeah, so it was a time of growth. It was a time of learning. I really had great relationships with all, you know, German people that were older than me. I mean, probably 20 years older than me in many cases, but it was just a really great time. And I think growing up in the environment that I grew up in, you know, I'm around, you know, white people all the time in school and stuff. So it didn't faze, you know, like it. So it didn't faze me. It wasn't something totally new that I had to try and come to terms with. It was my everyday reality. Whereas a lot of people, you know, that I grew up with, because, you know, it was like I had school and church was like a different thing, because church was like going back to Jamaica, because then you've got the whole cultural thing going on there, and it's almost like you get your all that cultural upbringing and all that cultural, just that identity, I guess, from parents, grandparents, but also that church community. So it's almost like living in two worlds. But what I noticed as well was that many people in my church community didn't have that exposure. They were in schools where the majority black people, they stayed around black people, they went to church, everything was with Jamaican, Caribbean people, and not really mixing with any other people. And so I really thank God that my parents did what they did, which kind of just allowed me to be able to mix and just have a wider, broader view of life.
Coming back to Germany quickly, Rachel. So tell us quickly. So you're in Germany in the German church, and you heard the song called "Friede wie ein Strom," right?
Mm-hmm.
And for any Germans watching, we love Germany, by the way. We love you, and we hope we can get there soon to minister in your wonderful nation again. But Rachel, you heard the song, and what was your thinking at the time?
Well, I loved it. I mean, we sang it basically every other week. And while I was in Germany, I became part of the worship team. They asked me to come onto the worship team for the English services, which were once a month. And then they asked me to come into the worship team for the German services. So I was in the worship team in the church.
So then fast forward a few years down the line, we can quickly come just to when you were in Vinesong. One day we were...
Yeah, so Friede wie ein Strom, I mean, they, like I said, they sang it every other Sunday. It was a wonderful song. I loved it. So fast forward 2008, and then I'm in Vinesong, and I hear this song in English, Peace Like a River, and I'm like, and I've joined Vinesong. I know that Vinesong have Let Your Living Water Flow. I find out that Holy Spirit Move Me Now is another song that is part of, Vinesong. Then I hear Peace Like a River, and I'm like, no way. Like, I said to is this your song, John? Did you write this? I said, yeah. It's like in 1994, 95, when I was in Germany, that was it just blew me away that this was a song that was just so dear to me at that time, and was really working and moving in the churches. I mean, every time we sang that song, there was just a move of the Spirit in the churches, and it was just wonderful.
Now, let's rewind quickly, Rach. So, after Germany, you did an MBA at some point, right?
So that's basically 10 years after my first degree. So I left, I did Germany, finished my degree, and then I worked in telecommunications. I got a job doing what I wanted to do.
That's when you started traveling.
My degree. Yes, yeah. And I started traveling then. So I started as a software developer, which I really didn't enjoy, because you just have to have a relationship with your computer that I just was not interested in having. I could do the job, but I really found it. I mean, every afternoon after lunchtime, I'd fall asleep at my computer, and my friend would walk by. She'd know every time she walked by, I'd be falling asleep, or I'd be asleep, or whatever. And I did that job for 2 years, and then in the same company I was able to get an opportunity to join a new team where they wanted us to travel. So still doing technical things. It was a technical sales job. They had new products out, and they wanted us to go out and to go to different countries and talk about these new products, and it was great. I mean, I went to China. I would never in a million years have ever gone to China, but I went with the job, and I traveled all over.
I mean, here you were flying business class with this team of executives going from Australia to China to South America.
Argentina. I went. Japan. The only woman in the team and the only person of color in the team, and we were a small team. I think we were probably about six people, or six or seven people that had to go out and do this.
Amazing.
Yeah, great times.
Wow. And sorry, I don't want to preempt your testimony, but was it then that you said that you were washing up one day, or am I running ahead?
So really basic. I think I was about 24 when I started doing the traveling. That was great. It was the heydays. There was a there was a tech
boom.
bubble
which
which burst in 2001. And I remember in 2001, it was like November 2001, I was just really thinking about my life and thinking about what I'm doing and where I'm going. And work had changed a lot because of this burst. The tech bubble had burst. And so, there were not spending the money on training, the traveling wasn't so much, which was not so much of an issue, but I wasn't really going out to see customers, and that was my thing. I enjoyed that interactive part of the job. That's what I really enjoyed, and that wasn't there anymore. And so, yeah, in 2001, I was in my kitchen washing up, and I just was thinking, am I going to travel again, Lord? What's going on? And it wasn't an audible voice. It was just a sense of the Lord saying, you'll travel for me one day.
Mm.
And it's like, wow. And that was it, travel for me one day. And at that time, they were doing voluntary redundancies at work, but I wasn't interested at that time. But come January, as I started to think, I don't really want to be typecast as an engineer. I don't want to feel trapped. They offered it again, and I was very happy. So I took the voluntary redundancy and left, and did something totally different. I worked with young people, with young offenders, and that's what I did. That's part of my journey, part of God's preparation, actually, to just bring me where He wanted me to be. So after I did that job working with young offenders, so that was another 4.5 years. So I worked for 10 years, and then I did my MBA. Again, another big story in itself, but I was again looking, saying, I don't want to do this job for the rest of my life. God, you said I'll travel for you one day, so I want to be prepared for what it is that you want me to do, and I feel like I should do some more study, and let me do an MBA. It's something I'd looked into before, and I went on that path, and God just opened doors, and I found myself doing an MBA at Warwick University in the UK.
And was it at this moment that financially you really had to take quite a leap, isn't it, to do it at this time?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I had to take quite a leap. I didn't really have savings. I remortgaged the house that I lived in, and I knew that I had to invest in myself. I just had that sense that if I want to do something, I can't sit down and wait for somebody to do it for me. If it's not coming, I've got to do something for myself. So I remortgaged, which paid for part of the expenses, and kind of just went basically in faith, just went with, okay, I really feel that God said yes, let me go for it. And again, that was a 12-month period, but really at the end of that, financially, I was broken. Financially, my finances were in a terrible shape. I'd rented my house out. While I was away, the person who rented it didn't pay rent, messed up a few things. Basically, it was empty, and so I was still having to pay for it, which wasn't the plan. And just a lot of other things happened financially while I was doing my MBA.
So now you've got your MBA, and now you want to obviously get the work of your dreams, right? So here you are. And this is a very important part of your journey.
Mm. Yeah, I remember one thing when I went for the MBA. I said to God, because I was doing a lot of ministry at church, I was doing a lot of things where I was, and I said to the Lord, I don't think I want to move for a job, because then everything's centered around the job, but I would move for ministry. That's what I was kind of saying to the Lord. I really didn't know where I fitted. I did corporate, I worked in the public sector, and nothing really fulfilled me. And I was doing this MBA, was really like stepping out of the rat race for a bit, to kind of get a bit of a breath, meet new people, but also to kind of really find out what I should be doing and where I should be going. I really didn't know what I was going to do at the end of my MBA, but what I had thought to myself is, if I have to work for a living, and I didn't really enjoy it, then I might as well make as much money as possible. I didn't see any other point. That was really it. That's what I said to the Lord. But even though that was kind of my thought, there was still another thought that I've had money before. It wasn't enough. So God, if you're going to do something, you really need to do it. You really need to do something special. You need to do it in a way that I know that you have done it, and I've not done it for money, or I've not done it for any other reason, but that I know that you have placed me in a particular place, because I know I'm going to flourish there.
Mm. So at this moment, so you is this where you went to your church? I mean, just describe
Yeah.
the place where actually you were called to ministry.
When January came, the worship leader at the church, her father passed away. And there was just no way that I could not be at church, because I had taken some time off from the worship team before I did my MBA, like the 6 month sabbatical, dealing with this whole abuse issue and all of that was going on. That's when that all came up. And there was no way in her time of need that I could say, no way, no, I'm not coming to church. No, I'm not going to go. It's like God really, he knew what he was doing, and he kind of hemmed me in. Because if it had been up to me, I wouldn't have been there. I wouldn't have taken the 2 buses every week. I would have visited, but wouldn't have taken the 2 buses to go every week. And so that was it. Yep, I had to take the 2 buses every week to go to church and to lead worship. And that was it. The Lord just kept me there, and I in many ways I didn't want to be there. I really didn't want to be there.
But here we are at this point in Vinesong. We were at a place where we desperately were looking for an alto singer, Charlene, because you were singing alto by that time. But we won't go into that too much. But we were in desperate need of someone to fulfill a position. We were going to go to the USA. We got a 3-month tour fully booked, and the team members at the time had different visa issues and different things, which made it not possible for them to go. So it was just John, Charlene, and myself. Was that right? Mm-hmm. And the 3 of us, and we got a 3-month tour fully booked to go and minister. And here we were. Well, how long before we left? This was like a week before. No. 2 weeks before we had to go.
It was 9 days before you were going to go.
Goodness me. So 9 days before we go, we're sitting here and we don't know how God's going to do it, right?
Yeah.
So we booked to minister at this church. What was this church called that you had?
New Testament Church of God in Bell Green in Coventry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So somehow the Lord opened the doors. I still forgot how we got to be there.
I think my pastor had gone to a meeting you'd had with the Redeemed Church in Coventry, Pastor Itomi.
Oh, that's right.
He had gone to that meeting, and as a result of that, he invited Vinesong to our church.
That's right.
And yeah.
So now we booked to minister at this church, and so we set up and at this lovely church, and the pastor was so warm and friendly, and so we had the ministry time, and then in that service, Charlene, this is where we started to notice you for the first time. Yeah.
Yes, because I was singing alto at the time, and we had Beulah and Jonathan Kleinfeld in Vinesong for a short time. And really interim time where the Lord was really bringing the team together, and this was 12 years ago.
13.
Is it 13 already? Oh no, my maths is terrible. But it's just amazing. I was singing alto, and I heard this belting alto coming from the front row, singing exactly my harmony. And I was quite amazed by this amazing deep alto voice. And afterwards you came to the CD table and you were really touched by the song Psalm 5 that we started off with. Mm-hmm. Give ear to my words, O Lord. Mm-hmm. Consider my meditation. Hearken unto the voice of my cry, my King and my God. For unto thee will I cry. And you came and bought that CD, even though, now we know, but even though you were basically financially in a very, very bad situation. You had 2 properties and you were trying to juggle your finances with having to pay off your MBA. Your skin was in a terrible condition. You had terrible eczema on your face, and you came to the CD table, and we actually had a lovely time to chat. I remember like it was yesterday. And then you bought the CD I Behold Your Glory, which has the song Psalm 5 on it. And take over from there.
Yeah, right. I mean, at that time is when you were really desperate, aren't you? That's why. Sorry, we don't want.
No, it's good.
So at that point, you were at a real crossroads, right?
I really was. I mean, this was April. It was coming towards the end of April, and I had no money to pay the mortgages on the 2 properties that I had. And I was really crying out to the Lord. And I was saying, Lord, you've got to rescue me. Because I'd looked for I was working as a supply teacher. I'm not a teacher, I'm not a trained teacher, but because I'd worked with young people, somebody saw my CV and I was with some teaching agency, so I did it, and I thought, well, I might as well do something. And so I didn't have a lot of money. I didn't have enough money to pay my bills, and I had enough money to eat and do little things. So when you came, the ministry, it ministered to me so much and so deeply, and I really sensed that these people have come to give and not to take, and there was no way that the little that I had in my account had to come out and I had to bless the ministry. It was just, there was no compulsion. It was just, I have to bless this ministry. They have blessed my life. And I remember I didn't actually have any cash on me. And so I left with a friend. We went to an ATM. I got some money out. And I went to the ATM so that I could sow into the offering. And then also went to the CD table. And I think I had a little bit in my account. So I was able to buy a couple of CDs. And I bought the I Behold Your Glory. And that was like the soundtrack for the rest of my week. That was like, give it to my, those were the words of my cry, my heart's cry to God. And it was like I found the words that I needed to express myself to God, that God, you need to rescue me, you need to do something. I'm tired. I was so tired. I applied for jobs, I was looking for jobs, I was networking, I was doing all the things that they say you're supposed to do, and nothing was happening. And I really just felt desperate. And I just, but tired. It's like, God, you've got to rescue. If you don't rescue me, I don't know, but either take me or rescue me. I mean, all I wanted to do was to help, to just bless you guys back. It was just a natural reaction. And so I think I was helping to roll some cables or something.
Yeah, that's the Vinesong trademark. You get called with the cables.
Yeah. And I went to my parents, and some of my siblings were there, and I said, please, I've got this decision to make, I need you to pray for me. And I just remember we got together in a circle, and they just prayed for me, my family. I mean, it's, when I look back at it now, it's emotional because it was just such a beautiful thing. You know, you spoke about, I'd had it with doctors. I'd dealt with a lot of doctors and been told I've been wasting NHS money, and so I really had kind of unforgiveness, to be honest, towards doctors. I really did, because nobody really could help.